If you've been anywhere on the internet recently, you've definitely seen a trailer for or heard of the new movie Longlegs. Everything about this movie, from the early teasers, the posters release, the fact that Nicolas Cage was playing a serial killer, and the unexplained name Longlegs was intriguing and built this movie up to be a very creepy and even disturbing movie. Now that the movie is out though, that 100% Rotten Tomatoes score has changed to reflect that people have been very divided on how creepy and good this movie even is. And I wanted to talk about some of the things that caught my eye while watching it and just how this movie is constructed, because a lot of the reviews say very conflicting things, and I'm also just as conflicted, so consider this an insight into my ramblings. The director of this movie, Oz Perkins, has said about his first movie, The Black Coat's Daughter, that the name came from a lyric that his brother wrote in a song, not because his brother wrote it, but because of how the lyric made him feel while thinking about it. Truthfully, the name The Black Coat's Daughter doesn't really connect with the movie. There's no character named the Black Coat, nothing. Perkins said in an interview, "It's a verse from this rhyme for which my brother Elvis wrote the music, and we used it as an incantation at the beginning and at the end of the movie. Beetle, beetle, black coat's daughter, what was in the holy water?" I really liked the word daughter, and Elvis and I decided that maybe the black coat's daughter was a priest's daughter. Perkins chose this title of the movie to elicit an emotional response from the audience rather than connecting it with something that actually has to do with the story. And I feel it's the same with Longlegs. Some people were disappointed that the movie never really says why the killer chose this to be his name, but honestly I don't think it matters. This one word, paired with some of the images used in the marketing, I think elicits the same feeling titles like The Black Coat's Daughter do for horror movies, or even non-horror movies like Aftersun do, something that can just be based on feelings and not have to be connected with the story of the film. Whatever images or fears our minds can conjure up just from words or situations will always be more terrifying than reality, and the marketing for Longlegs and the movie to some extent knew how to use this expertly. And with that, I want to very quickly analyze the genius of the opening scene for this movie. In just, I think, 16 static shots, Perkins perfectly creates an atmosphere for this movie that will not let up. I want to talk about this very brief interaction between a young Lee Harker and Longlegs because even though it's very simple, I needed to talk about this with somebody. I'm sure you've noticed, but in the marketing for this movie, the team tried really hard to hide and hype up Nicolas Cage's performance, and the movie edges you a little more right off the bat. Once the young Lee exits her home to check on the car parked near her house, she's approached by Longlegs, only rather than show his face or shoot him from a low angle, Perkins chooses to shoot it straight on from Lee's eye level, meaning we only see his chin and focus mostly on his torso. The decision to do this I think really helped the movie create its atmosphere right off the bat. So much focus is put on Longlegs' appearance in the film as well that had Perkins decided to show his face in this scene, the movie would just not have felt the same. And then there's the dialogue. We never get an explanation to why Longlegs chose this serial killer name, but he does say those words once in this opening scene. For a refresher, or for people who don't care about spoilers, after approaching Lee and telling her that it's almost her birthday, he tells her, "It seems like I wore my long legs today. What happens if I," before kneeling down to be eye level with her, briefly revealing his face before the film cuts to its title credits. The opening is very simply shot, but with the decision to shoot Longlegs at this angle, a way to incorporate the words Longlegs into his dialogue, and the brief face reveal which brings all of it together, this short sequence is probably my favorite in the entire film. And while we're on the topic of Longlegs, let's talk about the actual killer in this movie, because I have some conflicting feelings about him. First off, let me just say that I think that Nicolas Cage is one of the greatest working actors, and that he brought a commitment to the character that would have been difficult to match with a different actor. I think what he did with his voice felt new in a genre full of creepy guys with strange voices, and the few times he was on screen, I liked how loud and animated Longlegs felt. I saw a video essay which I'll put on screen here that talked about how the character's look was pretty much a compilation of every trait a person could have that would cause someone to call them creepy, and yeah, it really seems like it, but sometimes I feel like it was a bit too much. Like, for example, with a character like Buffalo Bill, he's definitely disturbed, but if you saw him on the street somewhere, he'd probably just be a strange guy. You cannot tell me that if you saw Longlegs walking down the street as he's presented in this movie, you would not immediately identify him as a serial killer. Even the one scene where he was in public, he was acting like something was very wrong in his head. But all in all, I do think that hiding his face, just like the movie does pay off in the end. Some people hated the prosthetics, and honestly, I didn't really mind. I think the face we got was definitely creepier and more worth the wait than had it been a really scruffed up Nick Cage face. And while we're talking about the look, let's talk about the way he kills his victims and his motivation. And honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think it was pretty obvious that it was going to be something supernatural from the beginning, and the idea that it was devil worship powers that influenced the fathers to kill their family and then themselves didn't really feel like anything big, and I'm glad we got to explain how the killings happened, but the background itself didn't serve to make the movie any scarier. What I'm more interested in is dissecting the motivation of the killer and how that plays into the film as a whole. I have to talk about Oz Perkins a bit because while it's very clear to me that he has a strong visual and aesthetic style he's going for, one criticism he keeps getting throughout his entire filmography is that with every movie, he feels like he's trying to break the wheel and make it about something much deeper than the film should be. I can't really blame him. Directing in the genre where your father played perhaps the most famous character has got to come with some pressure, but it really feels like his career has led up to here. By the end of the movie, I really enjoyed the visuals and the story was interesting enough, but I couldn't really grasp at anything deeper. That is until I started watching interviews with Nick Cage and Oz Perkins about the film. Both Perkins and Cage repeatedly state that this is a movie and a character about their mothers. When talking about coming up with the voice for the character, Cage said that even with the creepiness, he wanted to imbue some emotion and caring in the voice, especially when speaking with Lee, and to think about and analyze the movie through the perspective of Longlegs doing these acts out of love, I think does change something for me. By the end of the film, we know that Harker has a personal connection to Longlegs through a traumatic experience in her childhood, and also the fact that her mother was his accomplice. Lee's mother, although shown to be some form of Christian, fully believes in the satanic rituals she is a part of by the end of the movie, and clearly so does Longlegs. Given the fact that Longlegs has been living with her mother since Lee was 9, and that one line in the interrogation room where Longlegs says, "We laughed when you joined the FBI," or something like that, makes me feel that maybe Ruth and Longlegs were closer than some people think, with both of them and Lee sharing some sort of fucked up emotional connection, especially if Ruth is so open to discuss the personal life of her daughter to the serial killer living in the basement. Maybe Longlegs changed his style of killing from whatever he was planning to do to the Harkers to the doll method we see in the film as a form of protection or assistance to Lee. Maybe he wanted Lee to kill her boss and her mother in the end to bring her closer to her mom and him, with the three of them now being killers. Longlegs gives himself up knowing he will kill himself so that in his own fucked up way, Lee can achieve the catharsis in the end, meaning that he knew he wasn't going to see the end results of all of his rituals, and isn't willing to die so someone can succeed a form of love. I don't know what the movie as a whole is trying to say, but these are just some of the things going through my head while thinking about the film. And lastly, I need to address one very important point. In that one scene where Lee goes to the Longlegs victim's house and her boss tells her that they've been dead for over a month, how was the cat still alive in its cage? What did it eat? How did it survive? Why was it not immediately removed and fed by the FBI? I don't know, but I need answers. And that is all I have to say about Longlegs. I'm not the type to get scared by horror movies. I mostly like them for the visuals and the vibe, and the more I think about this movie, the more I like it. What did you think about the movie? Did it live up to the hype? Let me know in the comments, and if you liked the video, consider checking out some of the other videos on this channel. Thank you.